Hey guys, so my name is Jessica Petrillo. I got back from Australia and Papua New Guinea about 5 months ago now. I did an October DTS, which means Discipleship Training School, and YWAM stands for Youth with a Mission. So I went over there and there's 11 weeks of lectures, so I got to do a lot of training and learning and growing in my faith and healing from past things, and it was just like a huge group of people, community, very Christian, very healthy community where everyone would come together and you just grow so close with these people because you're living with them for 6 months, and you just grow with God and your relationship and your faith, and your testimonies are just growing and growing. So I'm here to share some of those with you. I'm here to kind of explain some of the things that I went through and that I got to experience when I was over there. And yeah, so let's jump into it. So I was given a ministry placement, which is just kind of something that you do around campus, like work in the kitchen, or I did property development. So that's like construction down the street. They have a really cool place, like a youth center that they're building, and they're growing to one day open up and have the youth in the community come and be able to have kind of a safe spot in a community place. So I was doing a lot of construction there and doing the bathrooms and stuff like that and building those from nothing up. So that was really cool over time to see how I got to be a part of that and building those bathrooms and just helping along the construction there. Some other things that I mentioned earlier about the lectures, every single week was a different topic focus. So one of the weeks was Identity Week, where we just got to really dig deep into ourselves and who we see ourselves as, and how, you know, the world has painted this picture of us that's just not right. It's not accurate. It's not cute. And kind of going back to square one and learning who God says that we are and how we are valued to Him and our worth to Him. And that's what matters. And that's who we are. And our identity is in Christ, and it's not in this world. So there was like a lot of crying that week of people just kind of working through things that they've been through and things they've thought about themselves and some things that they've done. Just a lot of tears, a lot of forgiveness. And so there was one night that was one of the biggest nights to me over DTS, which was when people would wash our feet and speak that forgiveness over us, just as Jesus washed the disciples' feet. And at first, it sounds super cringy and weird, right? But it was like so healing and beautiful to see people getting on their knees and washing their classmates' feet, or even most of the staff were doing it. It was just a really cool process. Really, really cool night. Lots of tears, lots of healing. I cried so much. My head hurt for a week. But that was one of my favorite nights. My really good friend Donna washed my feet, and she helped me through a lot of things that, I was working through, some things we had similar. And so we all both found a lot of healing in that. And if you want to know more about that, just message me. That's a whole story. It's really cool. So that was one of the weeks. Another week was Lordship Week, and that was probably my second favorite week. So that one was really intense. So we had, I have a picture here. So we all laid stuff down at the cross. Like, it was very visual. You didn't leave it there. You could take it back, but it was visual for laying things down and not having them as idols or things that you're struggling with. It goes many ways, but I laid down, for example, my teddy bear that I've had since I was a kid. I laid that down as a symbol of comfort and things that I place in my life instead of God and Jesus, instead of those things that I used to comfort myself. So my teddy is one of them. Not saying that stuffed animals are horrible, but I was just symbolizing it as things I use for comfort. I laid down my wallet saying, God, this is not my money, this is yours, and have your way with this. That doesn't mean He's gonna take away all my money or make me poor. That just means, I'm letting Him come in and have His way with what He wants to do with the money, because it's His and it's not mine. I laid down a ring that has the Lord's Prayer on it that was given to my brother, and he has now accepted Jesus, praise God, but at the time he had not. And so I had been really struggling with that and the fact that he wasn't saved, and I was really trying to find that salvation for him and give it to him, and it wasn't my job. So I laid down his salvation, I laid down his life at the cross, and I said, Jesus, have your way with my brother, because you know my desires for him, and you want them too. You want him to be saved. He's your son. So once I realized that, that was a big one for me. I laid that down, and again, that doesn't mean that God's going to take my brother away. That means, have your way with my brother's life, and I'm at peace with it, and I trust you. So we also did this thing where you have, you hold a staff out, and you lay those things down. So you drop the staff, and I lay down my brother's life, and I would drop it. And then when I picked up the staff, I would say, okay, now I'm picking up trust in you and faith that you'll have your way and your will be done. And the staff dropping doesn't mean something's happening. It's just a visual, and I am such a visual person. So it was so cool to be physically dropping those things out of my life, those worries, and picking up peace and trust and faith, all these things. So that was another one of my very favorite moments. Something else really cool that happened was I got baptized over my DTS on campus. I got baptized with a lot of my good friends. That was a very cool day for all of us to be standing there together and witnesses for each other's faith. That was a huge thing for me. And shortly after that, I think we found out our outreach team. So outreach is when I went to Papua New Guinea. So groups of small numbered people, small amounts of people went to different parts of Papua New Guinea, and one group stayed in Australia to do their outreach. So that was when we just went out for 6 weeks, and we would do whatever our project was in that town or village. And so we found out our outreach teams, and that was so exciting. They did a whole scavenger hunt thing for it, which just made it really exciting. And I got to be put with a bunch of my close friends on my outreach, and everyone else that I didn't know so well, I got to know real quick, and I'm so grateful for my team. I love my team so much. And so after that, we started doing other outreach projects in Australia with those teams. So as those teams, even though we were all living on campus, we would go out in those teams we were given and doing those projects. So we were all doing something called Stable on the Strand, which is something they do in Australia every single Christmas, and it's really cool. It's like a free festival that you go to, and they have all these little booths and things like back in Jerusalem, and like bread making, and like the wedding dances, and basket weaving, and like people have the armor on, and they have little kid armor, and the kids can take pictures in it, and it's just really cool. And so we set up for that for a couple days, and then we all worked the booths, we worked the food stands for the whole time the festival was going. So that was our first outreach. That was awesome. And then something else that my outreach team did, a lot of our first outreach, was we would go to a place called the Drop-In Center, which was just like right down the street in the city. It was basically it was a really cool, it was a community building where you can come if you're homeless or you need help, and you can get meals, you can do laundry, there's bathrooms. But most of the people that we were going for, at least, were the people that would hang out outside, and they would just be in the grass. They just kind of like lived there, and that was okay. Like you were allowed to just stay there. So most of them were high or drinking or just under the influence of something, and they've all seemed to have been through quite a lot. And so it was really cool because we started going very consistently, and so we got to build relationships with a lot of these people and really grow to love them personally. And so it was really cool to see these people from how we met them and just growing in our relationship, and how they began to trust us and let us in and being more honest with us, so we could pray with them every single day. And we started bringing some of them to church on Sundays. We'd go and bring breakfast and then drive them to the church on campus and then take them back. It was just so cool. And I started going in the afternoons after I was free from my ministry placement, and I would go at night. And it was just the best experience ever. I just wanted to be there all the time. I just wanted to be hanging out with these people all the time. I did not want to leave. I miss them a lot. They're probably high on the list of what I miss most from being in Australia. So yeah. Okay, something else that I really loved that my outreach team did was on New Year's Eve. Actually, we got to go, and we became a performing arts team all of a sudden. So we learned a really cool skit called the Everything Skit that I can add a video of, and it is so powerful. It's about a girl who's walking through all these things in life with the world just pushing her this way, drinking, drugs, all these things, guys, and then just Jesus being there the whole time, like, I'm right here, and you don't need to do those things. And in the end, she finds Jesus again, and it's just so powerful we did it probably hundreds of times over the course of my DTS. And so we got to perform that for a lot of people at this other festival right in the same spot right on the beach on the Strand is what it's called, for New Year's Eve. And then right after we performed that, which was awesome, we got to evangelize the rest of the night. So we stayed up all night long. I actually got to swim in the ocean into the new year, which is, if you know me, so cool. And so we just got to go around, and we had our guitars, our ukuleles, whatever it was, and we were just worshiping down the streets. There's this one street, I think it's called Flinders Street, I don't know. And it had all the bars on it, and all the, it's New Year's Eve. That's something that people of this world do. They go out and they get really drunk. And so it was packed. I mean, there were so many people in line to get into these bars, and just people, drunk walking by. And so we just eventually sat in this one spot, and we just worshiped there for hours. I'm gonna sing in the middle of the storm, louder and louder. We've had someone on our team just like passed out and fell asleep because it was like an all-night thing, and we were just worshiping and worshiping. It was really, really cool. I had to like carry my friend Omika upstairs when we got back. She was so tired. I just love that so much. And then shortly after that, we went to Papua New Guinea. So we went to an island called Daru, and that we were there for 3 weeks. So we were there the longest amount of time in one space, that we were all over outreach. And we got to stay at a church there, and I have photos of the place, the church. We had, they had just made such a lovely space for us. We were a big team. We were the biggest team of my whole DTS. I don't know, 16 people? I don't remember. And so we had these mosquito nets that we slept under, and we all slept in a row, really cute. And we had the string that would tie our mosquito nets, so we'd sleep under. And we would take malaria pills sometimes. It was hard to remember to take them. And so they had, I have pictures. They have this little kitchen off to the side. So the way that we would shower, there's no like running water where we were. So we would go off like rainwater and river water would be collected, and we'd take buckets, and then we'd go into this little corner, and then we would use the buckets to shower. And then, so basically everything that you do there is done in buckets, or bowls. And so you do your laundry, use a brush, you do your laundry in bowls, and you do your dishes in bowls, you wash your hands in bowls, you shower with buckets. You do everything that you can do in America, but it just takes a little bit longer, which actually was very good. Like, it was a really great way to just, especially as an American, like slow down. Like, I'm so used to just being on the grind like 24/7. So it was kind of hard at first to adjust to, like, it's going to take all day to kind of like prepare these meals and to clean up and to do this. It kind of takes a long time, but I got used to it, and it was actually like really nice to have that time with whoever you were doing the thing with. You get close to these people, and you just grow in your relationship with them when you're sitting for 4 hours cooking a meal, or you're doing laundry with somebody. It's just cool. I just loved it so much. And and then we had a nice bathroom in the back of the church. We had actually 2 of them, and so it was cool. You'd go with a buddy. You'd go with a buddy at night to the bathroom, and so that was always fun, waking up somebody in the middle of the night. So yeah, that was cool. Okay, I moved because the sun was really bright over there. Another thing I forgot to mention about showering that I loved, so there's no water pressure, so you just use the bucket. So I don't personally like wash my hair with shampoo and conditioner. I do other things, but for all the other normal people on my team that do use shampoo and conditioner, whenever it starts to rain, it doesn't really matter what you're doing. It's like, okay, it's raining, so we're gonna go shower. So you shower with your clothes on, and you just kind of grab your stuff and you run out before it stops raining. And it's like the only water pressure you really have. And so you just grab it. It's really cool. So I have some pictures of all of us. We would just go out and play in the rain and have a lot of fun. And whenever you're just kind of walking down the streets, you'll see, if it's kind of drizzling or raining, you'll see people with just their hair full of shampoo and just kind of coming out as it's raining. And it's just awesome. So there was this guy, Jonathan, who stayed the whole time we were in Daru. He stayed at the church with us, and he's a youth. And he taught me a lot of Papua New Guinea songs. So a lot of the songs I know are because of him. And he would sit down with me, and he was so very patient with me. It was very hard for me at first, the whole time, to learn these songs. I don't know the language. I don't know what I'm doing. And he would sit down for hours with me and just teach me these songs. And he never once got frustrated or annoyed, that I could tell, and I very much appreciate him for that. And so we ended up going to a couple schools in Daru, and we got to clean up a couple of the dorms for the girls and boys. So I have a couple pictures of us in the dorms cleaning up and getting them ready for the kids to come and move in. And we got to speak at a bunch of those schools and in churches. Something else that we would do is we would do something called an open air. So it's just when you kind of take we had a little speaker, a little mic, and one aux for a guitar, and we would just carry it to the markets or somewhere public, and we would just put it down, plug it in, and we would just start speaking or singing or doing skits. As I said, we were a performing arts group, so we ended up having like a lot of skits that we did. Like we just kind of took on that label, and we like really filled it out. Like we learned so many skits, so many dramas, they call them dramas there, because it was really, because sometimes people don't know English that well, so it was a great way for people to understand what we were trying to say. It was through acting it out or you know, dancing. Oh yeah, we would dance a lot. We learned a lot of dances. So yeah, so open airs, you would just go into the marketplace or go wherever, and you'd sit down, and you know, people would just come like out of nowhere. Like everyone would just come, like, what are these white people doing? And Omik. And so they would just come and just stare at us like, what's going on? And so we would prepare what we would say at open airs, at churches, and at schools just by praying and letting the Holy Spirit lead. And we would kind of feel out like, okay, who feels led to speak? You know, what do you feel like called to speak on? We would share testimonies, like if we feel like they need to hear about purity, like, okay, who has a testimony about purity in relationships or something? And then we kind of put that together, and most of the time Holy Spirit would absolutely wreck our plans and just come in, and you know, last minute we'd be like, I feel like I should talk on this, and you know, just kind of grab the mic and you go. And I love that so much. As much as I love lists, I love being spontaneous, and I love when I'm in a group, an atmosphere of people that are loving and trust in us, like our leaders trusted in us that we could hear from God. So when we said, you know, I feel like God wants me to share this, they would say, okay, go on. And I love that. That helped us all grow so much because of how much they trusted God and they trusted us. I had some cool leaders. I had some really nice leaders. And there are so many kids in Daru, and they just kind of had free reign of the land. They just kind of come and hang out with us all day long, which was awesome. So whenever we were staying at the church we were staying at, during the day, there's a bunch of kids that would just come every day. I feel like every day the group got bigger, and so they would just kind of come and hang out with us. We'd play games with them. We might lead like a devotion, a little Bible study, some songs, lots of worship, and they would teach us like a lot of games and dances. Like, I don't know how to explain it. I wasn't expecting it. Like in America, you can't really go to a park and be like, hey, teach me a song, and they all just like know the same dance or song. Like, we don't really have community like that in America. So, but in this culture, I mean, they all, like, they've got it down. Like, they're like, oh, you want to learn this song? Let's do it. Hit the music. And they just like, bam, they go for it. So they all taught us so many different dances that we ended up using in different villages and different towns we'd go to. It was really, really cool. So these kids would come from day one, and they were with us like every single day until we left. And yeah, it was just pretty cool. So when I heard that we were going to have to speak in public over outreach, I was thinking, wow, that's really cool for the people that are going to end up doing that. I'm not going to do that, though. I'm not going to do that. But my leaders were like, yeah, you're going to do that. And I was like, mm-mm. But I actually ended up speaking quite a bit. So it was really cool to grow in just speaking in front of people, not only just speaking in front of people, but speaking very personal testimonies, like things that I wouldn't even have a nightmare about speaking in public in America. Like, no way, Jose. And now I'm just like ready to go. Like, no matter what, I will jump up there and I will say what God wants me to say, no matter how silly it is. So the first time that I spoke was at a prison in Daru. So we went to a prison, and we did a couple skits, and we did some worship. They actually led some worship for us, and I spoke on shame and guilt and my testimony with that, or part of it, and it was very cool because I was so scared, and I don't even know how many people were there, but it was just a really cool growing experience, because even during it, I was like, wow, this really is not as scary as the devil tried to make me think it was. And after that, I was like, wow, I'm really on fire, and I just want to say all of the words, all of them. And I was just so pumped for the next time, and every single time I spoke, this fire just like kept growing, and I just got more comfortable. I mean, listen, I am not a professional by any means, but it was just so cool to be speaking in an atmosphere, again, in such a healthy community where my team was so accepting and loving of all of the people speaking, that even if we messed up, which we did, messed up what we said, we were sweating, we would just, fumble, we lost our notes, whatever it was, we changed what we were speaking, they were just there to just love on us, and they were interceding and praying for us the whole time. Whenever I was speaking and I would look at one of my teammates, they would be praying, and I could see that they were praying, and it just gave me exactly what I needed when I was petrified of fear, And so that was just something that I really, really loved. And even the community, the people we were speaking to, like, there were times where we would mess up something and I'd be like, yeah, like, keep going. And it was just really cool, like how accepting they were of us being human just like them. Something else that we got to do in Daru was we got to go to a government prayer meeting, which is really cool. So we went to their government building, and we all were there, and we all prayed with individual people that were involved somehow in the staff there for the government of Daru. And that was really great to bring YWAM as an organization closer with Papua New Guineans, but also just so much healing. I feel like it was just cool to bring our people together and just, not only in a healthy way, but in a God-centered way, was really great for the nation, I think. And I'm just really excited to see where that takes YWAM and their partnership with Papua New Guinea. Yeah. So one of my favorite testimonies from being in Papua New Guinea was in Daru. I was with my friend Masha, and she had met a lady at our first open air who had a daughter who was blind. And Masha's heart, man, is so big. And the whole time we were in Daru, she's like, listen, like, we got to meet up with this lady's daughter. We got to meet up with her. We got to pray healing over her daughter. We just got to. And God made a way for it. It was like one of our last days too. And we were doing prayer walks through the community, because Daru is really small, and you can just kind of like, you can walk around it in a day. So we just kind of like walked throughout Daru. And so Masha and I went to this lady's house, and we met her daughter, and we were praying for her, and we prayed multiple times. So she had a really bad leg as well, so she was blind, and she also could not walk. Like, her mom had to carry her everywhere because she could not walk. That's why she wasn't at the open air that we met her mother at. So we prayed over her eyes, and then she could see like shadows, and then we prayed again, and then she could see like blue, and then she could see the sky, and then we prayed again, and then she could see like her mom's face in front of her, and then we prayed healing over her leg, and then she got up and she walked with Masha. Like, her and Masha were walking, and me and her mom were like, oh, like, even though I just prayed this in faith, like, seeing it happen, this has never happened with me, people. Like, this is not something that is normal to me. Like, hello? Someone was blind and now they can see. I know the Bible says that this is something that we can do, something that Jesus told us we have authority to do, but hello, it happened. It happened. It happened. And me and Masha were just like, oh my gosh. So we just kept praying with her, and it's just cool because I have complete faith in God. Like, we didn't walk out of there with her having 20/20 vision, and in faith, I was kind of like, dang, God, like, what the heck? But also then I was like, okay, hello, like, this woman can walk now. This woman can see her mother's face. This woman can see color. I just trust God that I'm going to keep praying for her, and I don't need to have my hands on her when I'm praying. I can pray from across the world now, and I still know my prayers are reaching her, and I know God is still healing her. So that was one of my favorite testimonies. Something else when all the kids I was talking about were coming around and hanging out with us all the time is I made probably 1,000 bracelets over the course of 6 weeks. And so something I love to do, because they were just kids. I mean, there were kids everywhere. I mean, all over the place. And you would see some of the kids that you met in one place at a different place, and you're like, how did you get all the way over there? We had a car, you did not have a car. I don't know how it happened. So something I started doing was, I mean, I would give all these kids bracelets anyways, but then I realized when I saw them in a different place, if they had one of those bracelets I made them, that I was like, I've met you before. So it was just something that I would do, is I would handle these bracelets out so that I knew if I'd met them later, I would address them differently. Like I had already met them, and it was really special for them that I remembered them. Those bracelets came and got a lot. Another one of my favorite testimonies from Daru was a woman that I met named Maria. My friend Frankie actually met her first. He met her at the first open air, and then he told me to go over and talk to her, and I did. And so she's in a marriage with a guy, and he was very abusive. He was an alcoholic, and he had anger issues. So she one time, she didn't like when he was drinking, so she would leave because she knew he would get mad. So she left, and when she came back, he had burnt all of her clothes, and so she didn't have any clothes or anything. I mean, he kicked her out of the house as well. So she was just really like at rock bottom. Like, what do? I have nothing. I have nowhere to go. I'm lost. And so she came with us, and my team, we gave her some clothes, we gave her some stuff. And then she just started coming back. She brought us all like breakfast the next day, which was so good because we were eating like the same thing every morning, and it was kind of getting old. So when she brought us like these fried dough things, we were like, thank you, Maria. It was so good. It was such a blessing. Like, we needed it. And so she ended up sticking with us those whole 3 weeks. I mean, that she was there at the first open air to the moment we actually like got on the plane to leave. And that was really cool because God completely transformed her life. I mean, at first I was praying with her about, she needed the clothes. We got her clothes. She needed to get back in her house. So her husband eventually said, come back inside the house. You can come back. He eventually apologized to her. He eventually stopped drinking. I mean, every day we'd pray these things specifically. And then the next day I felt like she would just come on cue running, God, praise report, this is what God's doing. And her husband stopped drinking, and I actually got to meet him. I went to her house. She took me to her house during the house praying in the community, and I got to pray with him, and he accepted Jesus, and he asked for her forgiveness. I mean, come on, how much cooler does it get, people? This was just, that was just amazing, because at this point I had created such a tight relationship with Maria, and so to see her so full of joy that her family was coming to Christ, so good. Glory to God. And I just love that woman. Some of the kids that would come to the church with us, I'm not going to say my favorites, but some of the kids I was really close with was Zoe and Natasha. Natasha was just a little baby, and Zoe was a little girl, and I got really close with Zoe, and I love her. I miss her a lot, and she was there every single day playing with us, playing games with us. And I actually ended up giving those two girls my teddy bear that I mentioned earlier that I have had since the moment I was born. And that was huge for me. That was really big for me, especially because I had laid that down on Lordship Week, and I didn't think, God was gonna, I was like, God's not gonna take him away, but I am laying him down saying, God, have your way with my teddy bear. And it sounds really dramatic, but people, this was something that I think was on the verge of an idol in my life. Like, when I was upset, anything my whole life, I would like go to Teddy, and I wouldn't go to God. I would say, okay, Teddy's gonna make me feel better. And so I brought him with me on outreach, and I was just ready. I was like, okay, God, if you present me with somebody that you want me to give Teddy to, I'll consider it. I'll pray about it. But no promises. And he's just so faithful, you guys. He knows what we need. He knows what we need. He told me that I was gonna give Teddy to them at the perfect time when I don't even know how to explain it. I don't know, because if you know me, there's no way. I would never give away Teddy. There's just no way. And I gave him away to them. I left him. I sobbed so hard when I was flying on that plane. I was leaving my teddy bear in another country, y'all. But they needed him. Like, I got him. Most Americans have many stuffed animals and toys growing up. These kids didn't have one toy, not even one toy. And so for me to give them this teddy bear was just really big for them, and they really, really appreciated it. Like, I just had a lot of peace with it. So yeah, I have some pictures of those kids. So after we left the island of Daru, we flew to Port Moresby, which is like kind of the main part of Papua New Guinea, where, you know, it's like the city where it's most busy and most modern, I would say. And then we drove to a banana farm where we stayed for a week and a half. And we stayed with this amazing family that ended up coming with us for the rest of outreach as well. And we got to speak at more churches, more schools, stuff like that. It was really cool to meet a different kind of culture as well. Like the culture in Papua New Guinea is so diverse. So to meet people on the island compared to people, you know, in Kwikila, which is where the banana farm was really cool. So we would take these, I don't even know what they're called. My team's gonna be mad at me. They're like these trucks we would all sit in the back of, and then these other big trucks that would, anyways, we were a big team, so we were always very, very snug together there. But when we were staying at the banana farm, we ate a lot of bananas, and you'd be surprised what these people can do with bananas to make it taste like a completely different meal. I don't think I really got sick of bananas. I loved it. But at this place, they had different water source. So they had this big, beautiful flowing river. So in Daru, we did not have that. So we were just rainwater and like a little creek water, I would say. But in this village, we would go into this river and we would do everything in the river. So we would do our laundry in the river. We would bathe in the river with our clothes on. I actually got to baptize two of the girls that I got really close with, Missy and Sangare, in that river. We would go there every day almost, and those girls would go and they would bring water. They'd bring these huge jugs and they'd fill them up, and then they'd carry them either on their heads or their shoulders all the way back. That's kind of what the girls would do. The girls would get the water, and I thought that was really cool because that is pretty heavy and the girls are pretty thin. So it was just very, very empowering and inspirational of these ladies to really be doing a lot of heavy lifting around the house and stuff. They really it's pretty much a team effort to get things done in the community, like in the families. Like a lot of the families live together. So for example, like in America, you kind of grow up, and once you graduate high school or college, you kind of like out of the house. Bye. You get married. Bye. You have kids. Bye. But in this culture, it's like you stay with your family. You stay with your parents. You have kids. You have a husband. You kind of all live together like forever. That's what you do. It's not because you can't afford something else. It's because you want to live your life with your family. And I absolutely love that. Throughout the entirety of outreach as well, I had a little group with a couple of my outreach team members, and we would do a couple of different devotions together. So we'd meet every morning and we'd read our chapters and we'd talk about it. It was pretty difficult to find time for that, and we can all, I think, agree to that, but it was so worth it because the book we were doing, it was Purpose-Driven Life, and it was so amazing because it seemed to very much line up with the things we were struggling with like every day, I feel like. So it was really cool to do that as a little team. And yeah, so we would do that at the banana farm. I think it was the best for me because it was just such a beautiful place to sit and have devotions at quiet times in the morning. I actually broke the floor as well at the banana farm. Like, I wasn't even jumping. I literally was just walking, and my foot fell through the floor, and I was like, great, like this would happen to me. So after we left the banana farm, three of the people that the two ladies that I baptized, so Missy and Sangare, and then Missy's husband as well, came with us over to a different village where we stayed for a week. I don't remember, you guys. We stayed there. We spoke at more schools. We did more open airs. We actually partnered with another church, which was really cool. We did some team napping. It's really hot out there. So after we would spend a couple hours doing skits and dramas and dances and singing and speaking, we would just kind of like take a quick power nap as a team. But yeah, so we got to meet a lot of amazing people there. We did the house that we stayed at was the pastor's house, and then right next door was the church. And so I think for most of the nights we were there, we would every night go there and do a couple different skits and teachings with the community that would come. So it was really cool to be in that one spot and know that we were going to be there. Kind of a little bit of consistency to the trip because there wasn't much of that throughout the whole of outreach. Not much consistency, which I actually really enjoy. So yeah, we got to speak with those kids. So something else that was really big for a lot of us was we got to speak at a high school a couple times, and we just felt like God wanted to do a lot healing and teaching in those times that we went. And even though we had there was a lot prepared for those certain nights, I mean, God would just come in and be like, nah, I'd rather this happen. And so this one night in particular, there was a lot of spiritual warfare for me, especially. I mean, I really was not feeling it. I was like, I'm just gonna like sit over here and let you guys do your thing over there. But then I really felt like God wanted me to speak, and I actually just started bawling my eyes out. Like I wasn't even supposed to speak. Like my team is so awesome, and they had a whole thing planned. I wasn't even a part of the planning. I was really like not in it that day, like super bad. And then when we got there, I just felt like the weight of shame. Like I felt the shame in the room, like the way that I used to feel shame before I received God's grace. I felt that over all these kids. And I just like could not hold in my tears. It was bad. It was really bad. And so then my friend Omique was like, do you think maybe you're supposed to speak? And I really didn't want to because it's scary. But I knew because I didn't want to that God really wanted me to. So yeah, God, well, more specifically, I should say, my friend was speaking before me, and she was also speaking on shame and guilt. And I had some thoughts come into my head that were like, oh, she's speaking way better than you could. Like, why would you even try? And obviously at first I was like, oh, you're right. But then I was thinking, okay, that's obviously not God telling me that. That's the devil. That's spiritual warfare. Why would the devil be trying to make me not speak if I'm supposed to? Obviously I'm supposed to. Do you know what I'm saying? So then I realized, okay, the devil's attacking me, which means he's trying to keep me from speaking some fire. So I did go and I spoke. And it was just really cool. I mean, you guys, I wish it was recorded. Chris opened it up. He opened up the night on his knees, crying, just proclaiming how much God loves these kids. I mean, these kids were like, what are you talking about? But we were so, like, it was just like, Holy Spirit was just everywhere. And so at the end of the night, we did an altar call, and we just, like, we all stood there. You know, it's super awkward. I felt super awkward always. I'm just like, is anyone going to come, you know? Super awkward. There's thousands of people staring at us, and we're just standing there like, come accept Jesus if you want, come accept prayer, you know, what do you want, whatever, we're here. And once one person comes, they all seem to come. So and these kids were just coming, and then they would just fall in my arms sobbing. And it's very consistent. A lot of the problems these kids were crying about, prayer that they needed, you know, freedom and forgiveness, all these things that they were praying were very similar, about abuse in their relationships, you know, their parents getting divorced and cheating and beating and you know, just a lot of things that were very similar. And it's just, I mean, it's clear to see how the devil's attacking that nation. And so it was just really powerful how many people accepted Jesus that night, and how many people came up for prayer and just humbled themselves and just poured out their heart to us. And we got to just speak to them. Like, that was probably my favorite night. We got to go back to that same high school a couple times, and one of the times was to help clean the dorms, because I don't know if they do that regularly, but we were there on one of the days that they were all cleaning, so we helped them rake and clean around their dorms and in their dorm rooms. And that was really cool to have those conversations with the ladies, and the guys were with the guys. But it was cool because when you're speaking to a crowd of people, you can't really have those one-on-one conversations. So since we had already spoken there once, it was cool to be back and have those girls and guys that kind of knew us and wanted to talk more. So that was pretty cool. And saying goodbye to those people was not easy. I miss them a lot. There was I feel like we were there so much longer than we were. We did build some really, really deep connections with people. So leaving there was not easy, but I know that I will be back. I love you. So the next place that we went was to Malpa, which is actually, it was really cool. It was like literally right on the ocean, which was so cool. And it was a pretty beautiful place. I mean, we were staying, the girls got to sleep inside, so we didn't have to use mosquito nets, but the boys did. They were on the front porch, because that's kind of how the culture is. Like, the boys are in the front protecting the ladies inside. So if you know me, then you know, I was like, but I really loved sleeping inside for once. And so there we got to do a lot of speaking at schools. We got to do we spoke at the church that we were staying at, and we did an open air, or maybe a couple outside of that church, and when all the community would come. We did something a couple nights, maybe even 3 nights, where it was kind of like youth-centered, very youth-centered. So I actually wasn't a part of that speaking. I was helping with the kids. So on the porch where the boys would sleep, all the youth would come and they would show a video and they would speak on it and do little teaching in groups. And because there ended up being a lot of kids that showed up, and so we kind of wanted to start something for the kids. At first it started with, I'm just gonna go and take the kids so they're not a distraction and kind of play a game or two. But there ended up being like a lot of kids came. And so I was kind of like, me and a couple of my teammates, we would teach them some dances, do some skits, some Bible stories, and some games. And we had to try to keep them quiet so that they could actually hear their teaching. And that was probably the biggest challenge, because there wasn't like walls, like everything's kind of open. And so when you have a room full of like 100+ kids that are like screaming and dancing and laughing, they laugh a lot. It was pretty hard. I did lots of quiet fox, if you know what that is. Lots of quiet fox. Yep. So when we were in Malpa, our water source was they had a well. So here they had a well that was really cool. It's the first time I've ever used a well. So we would take the well water and we would use that to shower. We would use that to do our laundry in the bowls. And we would use that and take it to the kitchen to cook and wash our hands. And also the ocean. I mean, I would use the ocean to bathe in, but I think I was the only one that would do that. But something else really cool about Malpa was to get from the church to the schools, there was water. There was a river going into the ocean, and you can't be dry unless somebody carries you. So a lot of the time, so you have to cross that river. So before we'd go to the market to get food or go and speak at a school, you had to cross that river. And so the first time I walked through it and got wet. The second time I got on someone's back or something. And so I have a video clip of Hannah, my friend Jordan brought his blow-up mattress, and she just kind of paddled on across. You gotta be creative, people.
This is gonna work.
So after our time in Malpa, we drove back to Port Moresby, and we spent a handful of nights at a church there, and we got to speak at that church. And we were going to do an open air by the beach there, but it got canceled because it was started to downpour, it was just cool to see how God was moving, because I mean, he had other plans. I mean, we were playing with the kids in the ocean, so fun. We were just playing games. People playing soccer in the beach, because all the kids the whole time were asking us to play games, and we were like, no, we're about to do an open air. And then that got canceled, so we were like, sure, let's play. And it was awesome. It was just really great, because it was actually our last program. It was going to be our last program, and so to end it off on such a high note, a relaxing note, having fun with the people, I felt like God was just really bringing us full circle and saying, it's not about the program, it's about the fellowship, about the people, the relationships. It's about putting Christ at the center. It was such a cool night. And so after that concluded our 6 weeks in Papua New Guinea, and we flew back to Australia. And it was actually really cool, because we were on the same flight home as all of our teams, I believe, that were in Papua New Guinea. So we were all reunited after 6 weeks, and it was just the best reunion ever. We were all freaking out, talking the whole car ride home, blah, 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 oh my God, I missed you, this happened, that happened, blah, blah, blah. Because before outreach, we were living with those people for months and months and months. So we were so close with all these people we hadn't seen in so long. So we got to see them again and have a 5-hour bus ride back, which was really, really fun. And yeah, that concluded outreach. So once we got back to Townsville, which was where I was staying in Australia, which is in Queensland, should have said that in the beginning, we were put back on our ministry placement. So I was back in property development doing construction, and I wasn't doing the bathrooms anymore. Well, I think we finished the bathrooms. They were finished, people, started from scratch when we got there, and then all done, plastered, everything, tile, mirrors, toilets, running water, beautiful. And then I started working on the engine. So something else that YWAM does with Townsville, when they partner with Papua New Guinea, is they have a medical ship. And they take this medical ship all around Papua New Guinea, and they just go to the villages and they help people, and they have like an eye doctor. They have like some people that can just do a lot of things. This ship is huge. And so they have an extra ship engine that we were taking apart for extra parts for if they ever need it for the ship. And I know nothing about that. So it was super cool. I love getting my hands dirty, love it. And so it was cool to learn about the engine, and because I was working with somebody who actually knew what he was talking about. So he was able to teach me a lot. So that was really fun. I love being in property development. So also when we got back, all of us, I think a couple people from each outreach team went up in front of all the campus and got to share about something that happened over outreach. So I got to do that for my team and speak about Maria, which was really cool to hear. It was really cool to hear everyone else's, all the other team stories and testimonies of healings and of people coming to Christ through their outreach. And so that's something we did as a campus. And then shortly after that, I started going back to the drop-in center with my outreach team. And I also just kept going on my own with a couple of my friends. And there's been a lot of times where you can't just kind of have your own schedule and go. And so if you want to go to the beach, you don't just go to the beach. Like, God has other plans. So before I would ever try to go to the store or the beach, I'd always pray, okay, God, I'm not going out to evangelize, but I am a witness, and I'm your servant. So, put anyone in front of me you want. And so I'm not kidding you guys, every single time I had somewhere I wanted to be, I almost always would never get there. Like, God would always put somebody in front of me. Like, one time I was trying to go to the beach with my friend Erica, and we met this girl, Gail, in the road. And she was really very drunk, and she was in the road. She was trying to get a pack of cigarettes, and she refused to go home until she had a smoke. So Erica and we took her back to her apartment, and she would not go to bed until she had a cigarette. So Erica bought a pack of cigarettes, gave this girl one smoke, destroyed the rest of the pack. After she had her smoke, she went to bed. We tucked her in. She had soup. We fed her. It was really cool because this girl was so sweet, and she was just at this point in her life, and she was sharing things with us and speaking to us about some of the things that had happened in her life, and she was in a low point, and so we got to speak some life into her, pray with her, hug her, be close with her, and we didn't get to see her again, but it was cool how, we didn't get to the beach. We met Gail, we tucked Gail in and made her soup, and then we went to bed. So, that was one example. Amik and we have a photo there. You just kind of find people, and once you go to the drop-in center, often you recognize people on the street. You recognize the people that you've met and you've prayed with, you've talked to. So whenever I'd be walking anywhere in town, I would see these people, and they'd mostly be intoxicated. And then this one time we met this lady, and she really needed to get to the bus stop, and we recognized her. We walked her to the drop-in center bus stop. And that just kind of happened quite often. So that's something I'm really glad that I lived in this city for, because if I wasn't in the city, I wouldn't have been around kind of that population of people that were always going to be, doing those things. I was there to help, which I really liked. Something that we got to do in the beginning of DTS was every weekend we would go in groups around the community. There was a couple of different things we would do, and just to serve. And so the thing that I did the whole time was I would go to a youth center with a group of people, and we would just spend time with these youth. This was just a free place that these kids could go, and they could eat, and they could play games, they could do homework, they could just have fun. And so we would go there every weekend. And so I built some close relationships with the workers. So there was Zaquan and PJ, and I fell in love with these people. I mean, they are awesome. And so we ended up getting really close and hanging out outside of the youth center. And I ended up baptizing Zaquan in the ocean there on the Strand, which is that stretch of beach that I told you guys about before. That was really cool. They're actually married now. They just got married like last week, and I'm just so happy. So basically, once we got back, we had 2 weeks of debrief where we kind of got to process, pray through things. We got some people to talk about how to kind of transition back into America or our own countries and the cultures that we're used to, and not to conform back into those ways, but to continue like walking in the Spirit, and not to forget about what we had learned, but to live that out when we go home as well, which was actually like very difficult. Like, probably the most difficult thing I've ever done in my life was not conform back into my old ways when I got back home. But it was also different because I also walked into a quarantine when I got home. So that was just a whole thing. But yeah, so we debriefed. We spent as much time together as we could. We didn't sleep much that last week because people kind of started leaving. very abruptly because of COVID, because they weren't sure if they'd be able to get back into their country, so they just kind of started leaving in bulks every morning at like 4 a.m. So we just stay up all night, which was crazy. But I miss them all so dearly, and I cannot wait to see them again. I've seen a couple of them since, thank you Jesus. But yeah, I mean, that was probably the best experience I've had in my entire life so far, was going and doing YWAM, doing a DTS, going to Australia. There are so many DTSs around the world. There's over 200 in just America, and they're all over. I mean, they are all over the world. So please do it. Like, do it. You can reach out to me if you're worried about the money, because there are so many testimonies of people on my outreach that literally had no money, and God just provided it, because if he wants you to do something, he's gonna get you there. You just have to be willing, people. So please, if this is something you feel like doing, reach out to me, and we will find a way to get you there, because it completely changed my life. It completely changed my life. God, it's not the DTS, it's God. So, I mean, you don't have to go through a DTS, but I completely recommend it. It's an amazing place, amazing friends you'll make, amazing memories, experiences. You're gonna grow in your faith, you're gonna grow in your gifts. I mean, God has given everyone authority, and I didn't know about it until I went on DTS. I am so grateful for my leaders, for my staff, and for all my friends, my peers. And yeah, I think that's kind of the highlights. That's so long, but if you made it to the end, you are awesome. I love you all so much, and please reach out to me if you ever need prayer, if you ever need anything. Please reach out to me. I love you, and I will talk to you soon.